Hi, everybody. Welcome to the QB School. Today, Q&A, got all sorts of good stuff. Get into the nuanced details of the run game, talk about how we can get stronger throwing the ball, talk about all sorts of mic identification stuff. Really exciting, unique, detailed stuff. Love it. I hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the QB School. All right, first question from Patrick McGraw, Batman fan. What does it mean when he talks about alerts? All right, Patrick, thank you for the question. Alerts, quarterback jargon, offensive jargon, all that really means is that it's versus a picture-perfect defense. So I'll give you a bunch of examples. But against the perfect defense, a route that wouldn't normally be in the progression, as in 1, 2, or 3, all of a sudden jumps to the front and is the number one thing you're looking for. So you alert it versus certain coverages. I think oftentimes you'll think of, or I think of, quarters beaters. So if you got a quarters defense to one side of the field and you have a big post over the top of it, well, that might be a dead route versus a cover 2 or a cloud or a soft cover 3. But versus quarters, tight quarters, where a safety sits down on that inside route, you can get a post one-on-one with no safety help over the top. It's usually called a post alert. I've also heard it referred to as 1A read or an option route versus a certain look or kind of an option read, progression with an option. Another one that I often think about is some sort of like a hitch route, bump coverage. All of a sudden, now that turns into a fade or a go conversion you'll hear a lot about in offenses. So those type of things are alerts. So if you like it, it's the picture look. All of a sudden, it's an alert for the quarterback versus that alert look. It jumps to the front. You want to take a shot at it. Doesn't mean you have to throw it, but it's a built-in kind of option route versus a picture-perfect look. On defense, you want to take those shots, and it's a way to generate big shots down the field without calling a shot, if that makes sense. So as opposed to coming out and saying, okay, everybody run deep, what you do is you build in one shot, and versus a picture look, that is basically what's referred to as the alert. That alert gets turned on versus that picture look, and now you have the green light to throw it if it's built into the offense. Now, not every offense refers to them as alerts. Again, you can call them 1A, 1B if there's multiple. I've heard them just called option routes or progressions with an option versus a pure progression, meaning a pure progression would be it's 1, 2, 3 no matter what. Every single play, you cannot deviate off that pure progression. But then that gets a little mundane. It's a little easier to defend. Now you build in these alerts versus certain looks, and you could take advantage of what the defense is giving you, and you don't have to call shots. The shots are built into the offense. So thanks so much. That's a great question. All right, next question. John Hawken. Hey, JT. I don't know if this is a stupid question, but you know how the weak side is the side opposite of the tight end? That's not always true. What happens if you are in something like 12 personnel and got 2 tight ends on opposite sides? Do you say who the will is on the line of scrimmage, or does it get predetermined? So first off, double barrel question here. Let me talk about the first part of the question. Is the weak side opposite of the tight end? Not always. It depends on what kind of defense you're facing, what kind of defense the defense is running. Sometimes some defenses set the strong side always to the tight end. Oftentimes in the back end, as far as the DBs, linebackers, coverage-wise, the strength is to the more wide receivers. So if there's 1 tight end on a side and 2 or 3 receivers on the other side, well, the strong side is probably the 3 receivers. So they'll set the coverage strength over there. So you have to know the difference between kind of what the defensive front strength is and then what the defense is looking for in their calls. So some defenses will always set it to the tight end. Other defenses will set it to the side with the most receivers. So it's not predetermined like universally across football that the tight end is always the strong side. And then your question about what do you do when you've 2 tight ends, 12 personnel, or any personnel where there's a balanced 2 tight ends look. Oftentimes it's based on kind of your preparation for that team. You usually understand or know who the Sam or strong side linebacker is, who that defense likes to put over a tight end all the time. And so you'll usually just refer to him as the Sam. Occasionally, you won't know, or there will be guys interchangeable, or one guy plays on the left, one guy plays on the right, and it really doesn't matter. And I think that's the essence of the final answer. Is really it doesn't matter. If you're playing against a team that plays 3 linebackers, there are 3 guys, the middle is the Mike, and really you can go from there. You don't have to get locked up about, is he the Will, is he the Sam, is he the nickel Sam, is he the nickel Will? All those things really don't matter. They're birds on a fence. three linebackers, you pick the middle of them, he's the Mike, and you can easily declare most defensive fronts, especially even fronts with only three linebackers. Gets a little bit more confusing when you're playing an odd front or three defensive linemen, four linebackers. Now you got multiple guys moving around. How you refer to them gets a little bit more confusing. That's why I always thought it was a little bit harder to play an odd front. But again, there's advantages and disadvantages of both. But I think just to take the kind of the simplicity off of it, it depends on the defense is the answer. Like most answers, it's going to depend on the defense. Now, if you know how that defense operates and they always send the strong side linebacker to the tight end, well, that's an easy way to determine who the Sam is. But in reality, it really doesn't matter unless you're trying to run at a specific guy or matchups in the passing game. And then on the back end, as far as coverages, they usually set it to the passing strength, meaning more wide receivers. So if it's three wide receivers and one tight end, a formation you'll see a lot in college, or even in the pros in a 12 set or a 21 set where there's two backs, one tight end, and two wide receivers, kind of like a twins-ish look, oftentimes the defensive coverage will be set strong side to the two receivers. So it just kind of depends on how they refer to it, but it's a really good nuanced question, all sorts of details. Talks a lot about like what the defense values. So are they more interested in their front, in the coverage and the stunts and the pressures, or are they more coverage oriented as far as what the strengths are, how they predetermine where their force and kind of perimeter players line up. So excellent question. I appreciate it. On to the next. All right, from Jamari Riddick. Hey, JT, have you ever played against Urlacher and the Bears? If so, how was that experience? Yes. So played against Brian a few times, was on the practice squad, was on that Bears actually twice on the practice squad there for a pretty extended time at one point. So I got to play against him every day in practice. It was a lot of fun to play against that defense. They were on a different level as far as speed, coverage, how they flew around, how they practiced. I really loved how they practiced specifically turnovers. I remember Lovie Smith used to tell the running backs to just drop the ball on the ground or you'd have to throw it to them. I really hated that as a scout quarterback. Intentionally throw it to a defensive player and have them practice kind of rallying to the ball and scoring. And so not just good enough to get the turnover. They always wanted to score, scoop and score, rally to the ball and interception. But for Brian specifically, I used to think of him as basically like the best tight end in the league. Like when they were playing Tampa 2 and he was running down the middle of the field, you could not throw it anywhere near the middle of the field. He would bait you and turn his shoulders thinking that you could get it one off the other side of him. All the time he knows he's going to go back and get that seam, or he would have his eyes in one way knowing that the route is coming wrapping right around him the other way, and he had just this ridiculous wingspan, and he was also one of the fastest guys on the field. So it was a difficult thing to play against him every day in practice. Got a chance to play against him in the preseason, I think, a couple times. And so it was fun to get out there. It kind of takes a little bit of the allure away when you get to practice against these guys every single day. Then all of a sudden they don't quite become quite as dangerous when you play against them eventually, when you switch teams, those type of things, because you know the tendencies, you know how good they are. There's no surprises. Like there's no way you're not going to, sneak one by Brian Urlacher. He knows exactly what he's doing in the middle of the field, has ridiculous ball skills, can get everybody lined up, is going to play really hard. Just one of the fastest dudes on the field. And so it was a lot of fun to go against it. And I think you actually get a lot better when you go against those type of guys during the week. Obviously, that makes you a better player, but it's then kind of comes full circle when you have to go play against them and you know how good they are, and you got to try to find ways to take advantage of what they do really well and what they give up. So it was a lot of fun. That was Brian's one of the best players I ever played with or against. So thanks for the question. Next question, Jake Thornton. I'm curious how QBs call the run game. How do they decide when the front says they should run other than a heavy or light box? And what runs to run against what fronts or defensive coverages? All right, Jake, that's a big question that we could make a whole series of videos about the run game and how quarterbacks call the run game. And so really, again, the essence and what's difficult about answering questions like this is it depends on the offense. So it depends on what kind of system you're running, what your coaches are asking you to do. I've gone everywhere from you just regurgitate what the play is and you run the play no matter what the run play is. You call in the huddle, what the coach tells you, to getting up to identifying the mic every single play that then identifies who's blocking who in the zoo. And then we can go from there as far as the numbers count. You're trying to get away from a safety or run to a certain technique as far as you want to run in an even front to the one technique, or you want to run to the three technique to the other side, or vice versa, or you run into pressure or you run away from pressure, or what we're trying to do as far as what specific linebacker matchup we're trying to run at, or is there a specific offensive lineman that we like to run behind in certain situations. And so then now it's even more complicated with the RPO game. So now what linebacker or defensive end are we reading? Is it a zone read? Are we reading the defensive end? Are we reading a linebacker on flow as far as running or pulling it and RPO stuff? And so all those things, and it really just depends on the system. The real answer is you can do any of those things. Once you learn kind of I always think of the run game as the easiest of all the phases for the quarterback, because oftentimes it's just identify who you're supposed to look at, hand it off. If you have to make a decision in the RPO game, it's one defender, take what the defense gives you. If they make it easy, hand it off. If they come crashing down, pull it and get an easy completion right off their ear. But it really depends on what kind of offense you're in. I think the hardest thing for a young quarterback is when they've never had to identify the mic and don't realize sometimes, and that's the thing, it's not always the mic. It's usually the middle of the linebackers to the side that you're running to. So what I mean by that, not to give a kind of a ridiculous example, but if you're in short yardage, so now there's extra tight ends, a fullback, there's a lot more guys in the box, and say we're running a weak kind of what most teams call a bob play or a back on backer. So we want our fullback to block the will linebacker. Well, now normally that's easy. If there's three linebackers, we're going to point out the mic, and we're going to have the fullback block the will, the line's going to block the mic, and we're going to somehow get up to the Sam on the backside. Well, now there's a free safety in the box. Well, do we run all the way to the other side, or do we identify the will as the mic, and now we're going to block up on the free safety? So those type of things, when you get condensed with more numbers, I think it gets a little bit harder in the run game. But in reality, it's usually really simple for the quarterback in the run game. There's a lot of people, a lot of offensive linemen, a lot of offensive line coaches that spend a lot of time scheming up those type of things. I think it gets a little bit more nuanced when you start getting motion, or shift. So you shift to a motion, and now linebackers are moving, and if you have to redirect, those type of things get a little confusing. But in reality, the quarterback just says it in the huddle, signs it out, hands the ball off, maybe has to make one decision off one guy. But I think oftentimes they know that they want to keep the run game really simple for quarterbacks, occasionally build in alerts or things you can just throw if the defense is giving you, or gift route, depending on what you call those type of things. But usually you want to keep it as simple as possible. If there's one thing the quarterback's responsible for, great. Other than that, hand it off, secure the ball, and get on to the next play. All right, next question, Venom Games. So glad to find your channel, JT. Could you touch on some of the workouts you did to strengthen your throwing motion in the NFL? I've been hitting the gym a lot lately, but haven't developed a noticeable improvement in throwing distance. All right, Venom, I appreciate it. So it's a bit of a loaded question, because I'm going to answer this in kind of not a direct line. So are there things that you can do to improve your strength because of your throwing motion? Yes, absolutely. But I don't think that's really the intent of what you're asking. I think you can maximize your throwing motion by a number of different things, as far as not being too short, not being too long, but all those things are kind of individually tailored to what you do well, what your body does well, what your coach is asking you to do. And I can't really get into the biomechanics of what that looks like in a video like this. What I can do is tell you, if you want to build up strength to be able to throw the ball farther or harder, again, the reality of it is playing quarterback starts from the ground up. I say this all the time on this channel. Starts from the ground up. What I mean by that is your feet, your legs, your core. So you need to squat. You need to do Olympic lifts. You need to get stronger with your legs, your core. And then those things generate more force where you can then throw the ball harder, farther. It's not about how much you curl or how much you press or how much you, all those things as far as what you think about lifting arms or making your arms stronger. It's about lifting your legs, your core, doing all those heavy lifts, squats, RDLs, cleans, all those Olympic lifts to make you more explosive, powerful, that then generate torque to allow you to be a lot more dynamic and explosive when you're throwing the ball. So no easy answer. You got to get in there. You got to lift. You got to do it for years and long periods of time and lift and throw around heavy weight, not just get in there and warm up. It's about getting stronger and really playing quarterback again from the ground up. So as you get in there and lift and think about how you want to throw the ball harder, make sure you're in there lifting legs, getting stronger, and going from there. So thank you for the question. That's a good one. All right, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Send in more questions. Go back and forth. Really enjoying these type of videos. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. I appreciate the support. Thank you so much. Have a good one. See you next time.